Were mammoths bigger than elephants? Mammoths are a prominent feature of most discussions concerning prehistoric megafauna, especially when we're talking about post-dinosaur megafauna. These, mammoth beasts roamed most of the Earth for millions of years before disappearing completely. Nowadays, all we have left are their cousins, the modern African and Asian elephants, and even these are in a fight for their long-term survival under the dominion of mankind. Today's video takes a closer look at mammoths, how they came to be, and how they lived. We will also answer a common mammoth question: were they bigger than elephants? Let's get started. Getting to know the mammoth. The term mammoth is a general word used to describe one of the several species of the Mammoths genus. The Mammoths genus belongs to the Elephantidae family, alongside modern-day elephants and a bunch of other extinct elephantids. Notable extinct elephantid genera include Paleoloxodon, Primelephus, Selenitherium, and Stegoloxodon. The family is in turn under the Proboscideae order, which was also home to other families that are now long extinct. Interestingly, African elephants, Loxodonta africana and Loxodonta cyclotis, and Asian elephants, Elephas maximus, belong to the separate genera Loxodonta and Elephas. In fact, physiological evidence suggests that Asian elephants are more closely related to mammoths than to their African cousins. The term mammoth is derived from a native Siberian term for earthhorn. Earliest fossil and frozen carcass finds were made in Siberia in the 17th century, but oral history from that neck of the woods claims that these natives lived side by side with them. Unfortunately, this claim cannot be proven. Some native tribe folks even believed that the mammoths were still around at the time, only coming out at night and disappearing when spotted. For a long time, mammoths were revered in the Siberian wilds as water spirits. However, the truth is probably that someone dug up a frozen carcass and spread a legend. Scottish explorer John Bell was one of the first Westerners to officially document evidence of mammoths during a trip to Siberia in 1722. Locals who lived on or near the River Ob told him that mammoth's horn was a common find, especially along the riverbanks. Along with the water spirit belief, some native tribes believed that mammoths were burrowing creatures that lived underground and dug through the earth with their earth horns. The Chinese, who frequently traded for these tusks, were also led to believe this and referred to mammoths as hidden rodents. Intrigued, Bell bought a tusk from one of the locals and showed it to a famous collector, Sir Hans Sloane, the founding contributor of what we now call the British Museum, the Natural History Museum in London, and the British Library. The learned Sir Hans wasted no time in telling his friend that what he had found was in fact an elephantid tooth. To date, over 25,000 mammoth fossils and remains have been found throughout Eurasia, North America, and Africa. Evidence of mammoths also includes countless cave paintings depicting the animals. There are 10 officially recognized species of mammoth. The woolly mammoth, Mammuthus primigenius, is arguably the most famous thanks to its depiction in various pop culture media. Contrary to popular belief, the mastodon was not a mammoth nor an elephantid, but part of a separate proboscidean family called Mammothidea. When did mammoths live? As a whole, the order of Proboscideae likely dates back to at least 55 million years ago in the late Paleocene. This is about 10 million years after the extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs. The earliest proboscideans are believed to have emerged on the African coast off the Tethys Ocean, which is now divided into the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. These creatures are known as Erytherium and Phosphotherium and are believed to have been semi-aquatic. The next period, the Eocene, saw the rise of Moratherium, Pneumodotherium, and Baratherium in Africa. These animals certainly had 4 legs, but evidence of nasal cavities and forearm bones show that they were still partially aquatic. Next up was the Miocene, which lasted from 23 to about 5 million years ago. Tectonic plate movement brought the African and Eurasian continents together via the Arabian land bridge. This geological development would allow proboscideans to move north into Europe and eventually east into Asia proper. Later on, the Bering Land Bridge connecting Siberia and North America would allow them to move into what we now call Canada and the US. Here, the mammotids rose and dominated the landscape. Gomphotheres, a family of fully terrestrial proboscideans, had remained in Africa. Eventually, about 10 million years ago, this family would spawn a spin-off, a group known as Elephantidae. The evolution and success of this new family are attributed to the cooling of global temperatures as the Miocene drew to a close. The earliest mammoth species, Mammoths subplanifrons, is dated to the tail end of the Miocene around 6.2 to 5.3 million years ago. Fossils have been dug up in East and Southern Africa. Mammoths africanus is another notable African species that dates between 5 and 2.58 million years ago. Again, the Arabian land bridge allowed mammoths to spread into Eurasia around 3.2 million years ago. Mammoths rumanus is the earliest Eurasian mammoth on record, and it later evolved into the Meridionalis, aka the southern mammoth. About 1.7 million years ago, Meridionalis gave rise to Troganotheri, the steppe mammoth of Central and Eastern Asia. The steppe mammoth would eventually cross the Bering Land Bridge and give rise to Columbi, the Columbian mammoth. The steppe mammoth that remained in Siberia eventually became smaller and evolved into Primigenius, the woolly mammoth. By 200,000 years ago, woolly mammoths would also cross the land bridge and venture into the wilds of the Americas. The youngest mammoth remains were discovered on Russia's Wrangel Island. These finds indicate that mammoths were around as recently as 3,700 to 4,000 years ago. How big were mammoths? With 10 different species living in varied times and places, there are bound to be variances in physical adaptations. Size is certainly one of these dimensions. Most mammoths were huge and fell comfortably into the megafauna category, but some were bigger than others. For reference, let's briefly talk about African bush elephants, Loxodonta africana, the largest land animals today. Generally, female elephants are between 7.2 and 8.5 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh between 4,750 and 7,125 pounds. Bulls are considerably larger, with shoulder height ranges of 10 to 13 feet and weight ranges of 10,000 and 13,400 pounds. The heaviest elephant on record stood at a whopping 13 feet and weighed 22,900 pounds. The tallest ever was 13.8 feet at the shoulder and weighed 18,000 pounds. These are incredible numbers for any animal and make the African bush elephant close to the woolly mammoth in size. Primigenius is believed to have reached a maximum height of 11 feet and a maximum weight of 13,200 pounds. It's possible that woolly mammoths got considerably larger than this, but fossil evidence is limited. However, when it does come to species like the southern, steppe, and Columbian mammoths, the fossils do not lie. The former two species are the largest mammoths on record, though it is unclear which was the biggest outright. Bull, southern, and steppe mammoths routinely reached 13 feet at the shoulder and weighed about 24,250 pounds. There's a decent chance that there were even larger specimens. Females were significantly smaller but still larger than female bush elephants. Columbian mammoth bulls reached about 12 feet in height and 20,950 pounds in weight, bigger than most African elephants. Both sexes of all species bore tusks. Shape and size varied from individual to individual and from species to species. Mammoth tusks famously have more pronounced curvature than elephant tusks. The biggest tusk on record belonged to a Columbian mammoth. The slightly damaged piece of dentition was restored to a length of 16 feet. This suggests that 5-meter tusks were a fairly common occurrence. The longest woolly mammoth tusk is 13.1 feet long. In contrast, the largest African elephant tusk ever recorded measured 11.4 feet in length. However, not all mammoths were hulking beasts. Some species like Mammothus creticus, aka Cretan dwarf mammoth, were pretty small. Creticus in particular was a result of insular dwarfism. Cut off from the European mainland, the mammoth had to evolve a smaller frame so it could successfully live off the food resources on its island habitat. The Cretan dwarf mammoth is believed to have been 3.3 feet tall and weighed about 400 pounds. That's smaller than some humans. Mammoth versus elephant. Besides size, there were notable differences between mammoths and modern elephants. Posture is the first, particularly when compared with African elephants. Mammoths are characterized by a gradually sloping back. The crown of the head is the highest part of a mammoth's anatomy. The front legs are considerably longer than the hind legs. Asian elephants reveal their close relation to mammoths through a smaller sloped back and uneven legs. African elephants, in contrast, have a concave back. The highest part of the elephant is the crest of the arch on its back. The front and hind legs are noticeably more or less equal in length, giving the animal a more balanced look. Mammoths also had more pronounced and bulbous domes than African elephants, which have a gradually sloping profile. Again, Asian elephants also take after their extinct cousins with a highly conspicuous noggin. African elephants have much larger ears than their Asian cousins and mammoths. For mammoths, small ears were a protective measure against the cold. At the same time, large ears help the African elephant cool off in the scorching heat. Mammoths living in cold regions also had fur, which modern elephants do not have. In fact, the woolly mammoth had a double coat to protect it from its unforgiving climate. Dentition also reveals key differences. Woolly mammoths had flat molars, indicating a predominantly grass-based diet like the Asian elephant. African elephants, on the other hand, have pointed molars for slicing and dicing leaves and fruit. Another key difference is geographic distribution. With land bridges connecting the Old and New worlds, mammoths were able to occupy and thrive in most of the world's major continents. Modern elephants are largely restricted to the ever-shrinking wilds of Africa and Asia. One thing that mammoths and African elephants have in common is the gripping extensions on their trunks. They both have 2 of these fingers, while Asian elephants have 1.